Hello, this is Michael Eure, and I'd like to invite you to the Michael Eure Show, featuring student hosts and very special guests talking about a variety of interesting topics. You can find us on the Eagle Stream YouTube channel. Hello, welcome to the Michael Eure Show. And today we have our very special guests, Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth, and AKA Nathan Richardson and Lynnette Barber. And this is part two of a discussion about Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass. And it's really part two. And this month of July has been Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. And I think that we'll enjoy this dramatic lunchtime dinner theater. So I'm going on backstage and let them take it from here. So, Sarah.
Hey there, Frederick.
Hello. How are you, Mrs. Truth?
Oh, Mr. Douglass, so happy to be here on this nice hot summer day.
Well, you were known for taking a lot of long walks in your time. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. But after a while, you might have to see me come out of this because, child, it is hot out here for real. But I just want to share a little bit about me. Is that all right?
That's just fine, Mrs. Truth.
All right. Now, I'm going to try to respect your time because I know we ain't got all day. But a short story ain't one I got to tell, but I'm going to do my best today because I have had a long life. Now, I was born, they say, 1797, back in Ulster County, New York. And born and given the name as a slave girl, Isabella. My first master's name was a Harton Book. As I always say, do I look like a Harton Book? Do I look rich? But that was my first slave, my first master. And then from there, I was sold 4 or 5 times to many. Had the love of my life. Married Tom, had 5 children. But I always knew God since the beginning. My mama told me about that. About right over here now, look up over them trees. Look up over them skies. Look over them clouds. And God is watching you. So I always had God in my life. I didn't know nothing about no religion. I knew God. When I decided years later I wanted to be free, and when I decided I wanted to be free, talk to my master because emancipation in the North had started. And when he said yes, work hard, and I'll give it to you. Child, I work hard. I started as the best of. But then when my time come, right before I put my hand, and it slowed me down just a bit. And when time for my freedom came, yes, he felt like I don't work too hard. He can't let that good help go. He said no. So I decided, okay, you might not want me to be free, but old Bella gonna be free. Well, I still worked hard, stored up my goods, did what I had to do, and then when the time came, but I want you to know, I didn't run away. Right before sunrise, took my baby Sophia, one of my 5 children. So I took Sophia with me. And then I went to the Van Wagner's, and sure enough, master come looking for me. I knew he would, but they paid $20. Said I wouldn't go in. I did what I was supposed to do. But anyway, then my journey became later. I left the Van Wagner's. And after I left the Van Wagner's, well, I decided to go to New York City. And I had decided from them, I learned about the Methodist faith. And I decided I wanted to preach the word. And I decided I wanted to change my name because now I'm free. I don't want no assumed name from the mouth. I took on the name of Sojourner. And this lady asked me one day, "What's your name?" I said, "Sojourner." She said, "Sojourner who?" I was like, "Lord, I hadn't thought that far." But I decided if I'm going to journey the land and spread God's word, well, God's word ain't nothing but the
Truth.
That's how I became Sojourner. And then later years, I would get up and speak, preach. How did I get to preach? You ain't like somebody always just inviting me somewhere. I ride my house right in the middle of the town and get in the middle of the street in that great getting up morning. Oh, they come gathering around, want to hear that good singing. Ah, and I keep right on singing in that great getting up morning. And that great getting up. And soon as they done gathered around, and hear that old Negro girl with the good singing, I stop and preach the word. Huh, and tell them that ain't right down there in the South. They still got them slaves. That ain't right. Let people come. Later, people would have me to come and end up joining different organizations. We talk about that a little later. We're gonna talk about it. I'm glad to talk about it with you, Nate. Frederick. So we talked about that, and I joined these different groups, and I worked for the anti-slavery. I worked for women's rights, and I lived a good life. Even had a book that I helped to write about the narrative of Sojourner Truth. Told my story. I got to tell my story, and I got some money off of it too, and bought me a house down in Michigan. Oh, I've had a life, but I thank God for every bit of it. God is letting me lead in my way. Let me get up and talk. Let me teach things the Lord has allowed me to do. And I'm thankful. Now,
Well, Isabella, and I say the name Isabella tongue in cheek because, as we both know, once we escape from bondage,
uh-huh.
many of us would change our names. I was actually born Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey
Oh,
on the Eastern Shore around 1818. Of course, none of us knew the dates of our births. The closest we could come would be planting time or harvest time. And so we had no celebrations of our births as the white children did. But nevertheless, we were able to free ourselves from bondage, both of us.
That's right.
And so my narrative is one that is well known. You wrote one narrative, I wrote three. But as I told Mrs. Tubman, when she sent me her manuscript for her narrative, and I would say the same thing to you. And your backdrop today shows the life that you lived. While I was out of bondage under the leadership of the Garrisonian movement and William Lloyd Garrison, I would have the privilege of being on stages speaking to thousands of people and such in the spotlight, while you and Mrs. Tubman were on the trail helping to liberate our fellow men and women in bondage and to fight for equal rights in the suffrage movement. And so my narrative in comparison to yours is, I would say, quite pampered, to say the least. And so I'm speaking today. I did want to mention that I'm speaking today in this modern era. I came to the modern era to meet you. And I'm here in the home of Mr. J. Thomas Newsom, who was born in 1865 and became one of the first Black attorneys in Virginia.
That's
And
nice.
so his house has been kept for the history of America. And you might want to come to Oak Street in Newport News, Virginia, and visit sometimes, as you can visit my home, Cedar Hill. But I digress. And so, of course, out of bondage, we ended up meeting on the trail to freedom in New York, on the abolitionist circuit, speaking. I remember once, and this was right around the time of the Dred Scott decision, that I was probably one of the most depressed times in my life about the decision making of our government, in which they denied Dred Scott his freedom. And we happened to be speaking at the same convention, and I was questioning the existence of God. If God was actually, how would he allow our people to suffer such? And I remember you with having the audacity to stand up and make a proclamation.
Is God dead? I sure did. I knew you were weary. Oh, I knew you were weary. So, but I felt like I needed to give you a little push. We get weary on this journey, but then we got to look up and remember he's watching us. But yes, I remember that. I remember that, Mr. Douglas. I sure do. Is God dead?
Well, let's have a quick discussion about this religion, about our faith. It certainly is a faith for both of us to sustain ourselves. I think one of the things about us, we had a different aspect. I certainly was a Christian, practiced Christianity. We both were members of the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church in New York. You remember that church, don't you?
Yes, I do.
And so we practice our faith, but I certainly often spoke. I remember a speech that I gave called The Church and Prejudice, about the two distinct Christianities in America. And so we know that the slaveholding master would use the Bible against us. And so it was up to us, number one, to be able to read. And fortunately, I had the divine providence to teach myself how to read and write. So I did not need the master to read the Bible for me and tell me what the Bible said. I could interpret it for myself.
Well, I, on the other hand, could not read or write. So how I had to learn the Bible, I started off by letting adults read it. And they read a part, and I asked them to read it again. And they thought that once they had to read it again, that means I needed them to explain it. Now, I ain't want no explaining, because God was going to explain it. So from there, I stopped letting the adults read it to me. And then I got the children to read it. Because when I asked the children to read a verse over again, they just read the verse over again. But no, I might not could read the words, but God would give me whatever I needed and gave me that memory now that I could remember them verses and them passages. I might not could read the Bible, but I could read the people. And so I knew when I go in and I could use God's words. And I could remember the verses. God would bring me whatever I needed at that time.
That he would. I believe one of your most famous encounters on your trail, on your sojourn, I remember reading about this in your narrative, about how your gift of song and oratory saved the day or the night, that for that matter, at one of the camp meetings. And you know, we were always visiting and part of the camp meetings.
Oh,
and
yeah.
how you were at a camp meeting and these riotous men came and tried to uproot what was going on, and you were the one who used your skills as a singer and an orator to quiet the crowd.
That's true. Now I have to tell you the truth, Douglas. I was scared. Everybody was scared. When all them old young white boys come running up in there, we were all scared. And I did hide. But after a while, God spoke to me. I'm like, I just can't sit here. But I know I'm the only Negro in there. So I'm scared because I know they're going to try to get me. But after a while, God gave me the strength, that same strength from when my mother told me to look up over the place. God's watching me. So I always felt like I was special. I always felt like I was strong because God is watching me. So I got that nerve and I got up and I started singing because I done told you earlier, they love to hear us sing. And I sang and I sang and I sang. Yeah. And I see them calm down a little bit and we sing another one. And then after when I was about to finish, they were like, sing another one. And I tell you one thing, let's sing one more. But when I sing one more, I need every last one of y'all to leave. And I talked to them. And I said, but I ain't going to sing that song until everybody agrees to leave. And so when I wouldn't sing and they tell the other one, go ahead, tell her. So finally everybody said they would leave. After I sang that last song, that was probably one of my biggest songs I sung that night, singing for the ah! But I
Well,
sung that song, and once again, the Lord made them all, and they obeyed. They did what I asked them to do. When it was time, they got right up and they left. Some of them tried to hesitate a little bit, and then the other ones would say, we told them we would be. Made it that night.
well, we were so fortunate that our reputations preceded us when we started to advocate for the abolition of slavery, especially during the Civil War, that we would even be entertained by our president, Abraham Lincoln. And who would have thought that two Negroes who were born in bondage would ever enter the White House and stand beside the President of the United States?
Yes, that's
I
true.
remember my first time visiting Abraham Lincoln, that he put off a governor, the governor of Connecticut, who was one of the most popular governors in the entire nation, and had him wait just to speak to Frederick Douglass. And so I stood beside the president. Of course, I am a tall man myself, but he was taller than I. But we looked eye to eye, and I found there was character in the man, in spite of his prejudiced nature. He was an honest boatman, is the way I would describe him.
Yeah, I felt special to get the chance to meet the man myself. And then also for the Freedmen's Bureau to help others, ex-slaves, to now learn training on how to work and how to live. But yeah, I thought that was special to get to meet the president. Me, former old girl in bondage. Now, Mr. Douglas, could you tell me a little bit about that speech of yours, 4th of July?
Well, I believe it's probably one of my most heralded speeches. Of course, I give many times. What to the slaves of the 4th of July, of course. The speech on Haiti, the church and prejudice, self-made men, friendly word to Maryland, all of these speeches. But I think this speech that I gave on the 5th of July, I kept them waiting. Because initially I was not intending to speak. They asked me, what did I think about this Day of Liberty? And I said, well, what to the slave is the 4th of July? And it was until the 5th that I came up with the answer. And so you might want to go to the books. Unfortunately, we don't have the time in the modern era to go to that speech. But you can certainly go to your books and read the speech.
That's true. That's true.
Hopefully, the modern era has preserved our legacy. But what I was saying at the time was that certainly the founding fathers gave us a jewel called the Constitution, a promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But as a great man once said, men seldom eulogize the fame and fortune of their forefathers without leaving out some folly or wickedness of their own. And so we can proclaim how great our forefathers were in laying out this Constitution for us. But if we have done nothing to preserve and to continue and improve on this life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that all men are created equal and that every man is fully enfranchised in American society, then we have done nothing and we have no claim to our father's legacy.
Amen. Life, liberty.
And so that, in a nutshell, is what I was saying in that speech. We have to do our own work, as you know, Mrs. Truth. We have to set a legacy for our own children. You had 5 children. I had 5 children. One of them passed away, unfortunately. Annie passed away when she was 10 years old. But my other 4 children, they lived to be adults, and they were able to become successful Black people in America. But they had to do their own work. They could not just live off the work of Frederick Douglass.
That's just
and
true.
I would remind them of that. So if we will be saying anything to those people in this modern era who are watching us now, who are listening to us talk, is to make sure that you are following through on your civic responsibility, that the vote is just part of that responsibility.
Vote. You know, we both did some work on that too. Women's rights and voting, voters' rights. And when I worked with Susan B. Anthony, sometimes up there in age. And then sometimes, I can't remember all them names. And Elizabeth Canton Staley. Well, these states. Thank you. Well, I worked with them, and at first when they asked me to work about helping women's rights, my thing was about anti-slavery. And so, but they said, now what difference is it going to make if the blacks is free and they ain't got no rights to vote? Then the women, are they free? So sure, I worked with them. Now I ain't believe everything. I didn't go for everything they said, because some of the remarks they made I didn't like. That if I didn't get this, then it wasn't going to help me. But I still did my call. That don't mean I got to be up under you, but I still for the cause of women's rights and for anti-slavery. So yes, you and I have done some work. We need to be tired of all the work we done done. But God always gave us energy to keep it going, didn't it?
Well, that it did. And you are absolutely correct, Mrs. Truth, that there was a vast difference between the privileges that you had versus what the privileges of Susan B. Anthony or Elizabeth Cady Stanton or the Grimke sisters.
Right.
You were in those class of women. See, they were masterless women. You all had masters, and all the other Black women on the trail had masters. Even Frances E.W. Barber. We can continue to name all these great names. Many of our sisters are not giving credit, and even our Native American sisters were not really given.
Well, there's another young man.
Hello there. How you doing?
Oh,
Truth
too much.
and Mr. Douglas. I didn't want
Yes.
to interrupt your conversation, and
Yes.
we can put it back if we need to.
I
But
see.
we have a question. Well,
All
several.
right.
One, Chris wants to know: can you please refresh the memory? Was Truth and Douglas both around at the same time? And if not, who was first?
I was first.
That was a beginning question, but I think that it seems that you were both around at the same time. Is that
We
correct?
were around at the same time. We've been at some of the same conventions together, but I was older than Mr. Douglas. You know, they say my birthday was like 1797, but we ain't for sure. But I was probably about 20, 30 years older. But we were in some of the same places together.
We have a few comments. Josie says she loved the way this is enacted, the discussion between the two. So she enjoyed that, and I did, and most people probably feel the same way. And Rose is my cousin in Connecticut, and y'all talked about Connecticut a little bit. She just read that Sojourner Truth was the first Black woman to take a white man to court to get her son Peter back, and she won. She
Well,
thinks
you
that.
know what? In my lifetime, I done took a couple people to court. But the first one was because they took my son Peter from another. They took him out of state, and that was not yet. That was illegal to do. He was 5 years old, and I got that money with the help of some other folks. Got that money together, took the man to court. Now that was not an easy task, but I trusted and depended on God, and I'm gonna tell you, He made a way. I got my son back. They brought him back they brought him back, and had him down all in the South. And it took me a while to get my son back. And then I got him back with me because he was still on the old plantation at the time. And then I took people to court for slandering my name. So that girl has done some things with the help of the Lord.
So April says she's really enjoying this conversation with you two powerful people. And today she's learned even more depth about their lives. And so powerful. Thank you for sharing. That's what comment from April. And I want to say that I thought it was an excellent presentation. And we always like to let you go out with the closing remarks. My thing is thank you so much. And hopefully we'll have you back again. And we can go ladies first. Sojourner.
Well, I
Thank you
guess
for
I,
your time.
I want to tell y'all to read your books. I might not have been able to read my book, but we prayed for the day that you could have these opportunities to read, that you could, we prayed that you had these opportunities to do things that we weren't able to do. Now, Mr. Douglas and I wasn't up there fighting for nothing. It was never for ourselves, it was for others. So that now that some things are free, you got your life, you got your freedom. Make your feel it free your mind and learn all you can. Is what I say to you. Learn all you can. Know about from whence you came. Know about. And my last thing is, I just want to say something for the women. Now, women, we can do some things because if it took one woman to turn the world upside down, that'd be Eve. Now, you know, right now we can turn it all the way back up again and some more. So, women, we got work to do. Black folks, we got work. And if we done made it the hardest way for you, you come on in and bring us on in home. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well,
And in the end, I'm going to ask you to come back and give your contact information. All right, Mr. Douglas. Mr.
well,
Douglas.
certainly, if anyone has a question about what motivated myself, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, or any of us who were in bondage, was what motivated us was the things that we were denied. We were denied our freedom, and we wanted freedom. We were denied the right to read and write, and we wanted that right, and we pursued that right. We were denied citizenship. We were denied the right to vote. And so all of these things were the things that motivated us to get out of her, to sojourn across the country, for me to speech and become an orator and write books and run a newspaper, the North Star newspaper. And so find something in your time that insults you. I believe a great poet said, find something, strip away everything that insults you, and you will have left a poem. And let your life be a poem that speaks to the injustices of this society, and make sure that you and others and your children can live up to the preamble of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We want all men and women to be fully enfranchised in this country.
Right. And in case y'all didn't realize, I have on my Langston Phillips virtual reunion t-shirt, and we had a virtual family reunion on Sunday. And we really do feel it's important that we integrate this great Black history into these Black family reunions. So, and the Freedmen's Bureau, we were going to talk about it a little bit, but I know that several HBCUs were founded through the Freedmen's Bureau with the help of that. So that is a very important thing for us to learn about. So I'm going to let Lynnette and then Nathan give us your contact information, because we don't know what schools might want you or what families might want you. And you could do a virtual presentation for some of these upcoming family reunions and educational. So I'll start with you, Lynnette, your contact information.
All right. My contact information is Lynnette Barber, and it's LYBARPER6113 My number is 919-673-6392. I also do interpretations of Harriet Tubman, Mahalia Jackson, and coming soon, Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm looking forward to do that one so that we can start doing things, talking about voting. And but I ask all of you that are listening today, pass this on in a conversation. If you're at work, you're at home, pass this on to the conversation. Whatever you didn't know, pass that on to someone else to help someone else know. If you have children, grandchildren, pass this on. Let them know. Let them know their history. Thank
you. And for anybody who, your friends that didn't get to see this, please just share the link with them, and it'll be on YouTube from now until eternity, I guess. So, Nathan, how do we get in touch with you?
Well, you can contact my understudy, Nathan Richardson. His name is listed there. He seems to think he's more popular than I, but nevertheless, you can give him a call, and hopefully he can introduce me to your audience, wherever it might be. We've been very fortunate to travel the country. And so, yes, just give us a call, and we'll be happy to come and have you experience Frederick Douglass live.
And they can go to your website, www.scpublishing.com. Correct? Frederick?
Yes, I think those are the I don't exactly understand what that means, but
okay. And thank you again, both, for participating, and we look forward to talking to you some more. And we'll see y'all on an upcoming episode of the Michael Eure Show. And thank you, Sojourner. Thank you, Frederick.